Episode 2 of my podcast is released where I talk about LeBron and the Lakers' struggles and the rising young Sacramento Kings. You can search Andy Hoop's podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, or click the links in the box below. Before the 2015-16 season started, there were a lot of questions surrounding the Oklahoma City Thunder. Everyone knew what they were capable of, but after years and years of bad luck and disappointment, the hype surrounding the team was slowly dying. Add on the fact that the Warriors have become the new guys on the block and just won a championship, so it made sense why the Thunder were overlooked. How's it going, fellas? My name's Andy, and today we're gonna take a look at the 2016 Thunder and how they were so close to claiming greatness and making history. But before we start, I'd like to give a shout out to my sponsor, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app that aggregates ticket prices from all over the web to help you find the best deals for games, concerts, Broadway shows, and other events. The prices marked in green are good, while the ones in red are bad. I've used the app to buy tickets before, and the process was very smooth. The app is very easy to use, and you can also see the view from your seats before you buy your tickets, which is my favorite feature. Use my promo code ANDY at checkout to get $20 off your first order. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Alright, let's get started. Despite having two bona fide superstars, the 2015-16 Thunder season would have a ton of ups and downs. A lot of close games that they couldn't close out, a lot of bad shots, and a roster that seemed kinda weird. All season long, the rotations were always changing. Everyone was wildly inconsistent, even Kevin Durant, who's known for his consistency. They had the usual guys, Westbrook, Durant. Ibaka was still there, but his role wasn't as big as before as more of the offense started to focus around Adams and Kanter. Dion Waiters was a wild card. You didn't know what to expect from him, but during the playoffs he stepped up big time. Robertson was there and he was still a great defender even back then. Then you had a mix of veterans on the bench, but none of them saw many minutes in the playoffs. This team finished the season with 55 wins, which in any other year you'd think they'd be in the championship conversation. But when there's a team that won 73 games and a team that won 67 games in the same conference as you, it's gonna be a tough road to the championship. The Thunder had a good regular season, but nobody was impressed. They knew what this team did and what their game plan was. Throw the ball to KD and Westbrook and let them do something, which works well against average teams or teams with not much talent, but not against the best teams. In fact, before the playoffs even started, everyone thought a Spurs-Warriors Western Conference Finals was already set in stone. I know these guys aren't known for their top-notch analysis, but all these predictions did reflect on the general opinion at the time. Everyone else thought the same thing, that the Thunder would just be a second-round exit. Anyway, during the first round of the playoffs, they met a familiar foe, the Dallas Mavericks. Unfortunately for the Mavs, they were way too old and way too slow to do anything. Dirk had a great series as usual, but when a 37-year-old Dirk is the best player on the team, that's not a good sign. The Thunder easily won the series in 5 games. On a side note, Kevin Durant had one of the worst games in NBA history. In Game 2 of that series, he scored 21 points but shot 7 for 33 from the field and had 7 turnovers. He missed 26 shots, which tied Michael Jordan for the most misses in a single game in the last 30 years. But after that terrible game, Durant bounced back nicely and the series was over pretty quickly. Going into the second round, they were up against, of course, the San Antonio Spurs, a series that most people thought they'd lose. 17 ESPN writers gave their predictions before the series started. 14 of those 17 believed the Spurs would win the series. The only 3 who favored OKC were Royce Young, who's probably the biggest OKC homer in the world, and Ramona Shelburne and Chris Broussard. Those 3 predicted OKC in 6, and it turns out that would be correct. This series was a gambler's nightmare. After the Spurs blew out OKC in Game 1, nobody gave them a chance. But one game at a time, and they showed that their star power was too much to handle. The major turning point in the series was when Billy Donovan started to play both Kanter and Adams on the floor at the same time, which gave the Spurs huge problems. The Spurs were an anomaly because they ran 2 traditional big men with Aldridge and Duncan. Normally, a front court of Adams and Kanter would get decimated by small ball, but they matched up really well against the Spurs, eating up all the boards and second chance points. There was that controversial moment at the end of Game 2 where Dion Waiters threw an elbow while standing out of bounds, but it didn't really matter in the end because the Spurs got the steal, but they blew the fast break anyway. Regardless, the Thunder moved on to the conference finals where they'd face the championship favorites. Now, the thing is, the Thunder beat the Spurs pretty convincingly. It was in 6 games, but it was clear that after Game 2, the Spurs could not match their athleticism or talent. The playoffs are where superstars shine, so you'd expect people to give the Thunder a chance to beat Golden State. But that wasn't the case. Every single ESPN dude had the Warriors winning the series. So when the Thunder blew out the Warriors twice at home and took a 3-1 series lead, they were on the verge of doing the unthinkable. No other team in NBA history has had as difficult of a back-to-back series as the Thunder, going up against a 67-win team and then a 73-win team right after. The only other team that had it this tough was the 1995 Rockets, and even they did not have it as hard as the Thunder. Going by point differential and ELO, the Warriors and Spurs were 2 of the best teams in NBA history, and the 2 biggest favorites to win the title. By all the metrics, the Thunder statistically had the hardest road to the championship in NBA history. And even if they did beat the Warriors, guess who was waiting for them? Yeah, LeBron and the Cavs. Before we started making fun of Golden State for blowing a 3-1 lead, the Thunder also did it in spectacular fashion. Both Westbrook and Durant crumbled down the stretch, and Klay had the most important performance of his career in Game 6. Throughout the series, the Thunder was only running like a 6-man rotation with their starting lineup plus Dion Waiters off the bench. Cantor was basically unplayable against the Warriors. It was only a matter of time until the fatigue caught up with them. The fact that OKC had a 3-1 lead in the first place was unbelievable, and they almost overcame the odds again. If they made the finals that year, it would have been really interesting. The Thunder were on a roll, but they didn't have anybody to guard LeBron, who's always had their number. I don't think they would have won the championship anyway, but it's fun to think about. This loss to the Warriors was kind of a metaphor for how this entire OKC era went. A lot of upsets, a lot of excitement, and a lot of disappointments. As everybody knows, this loss for OKC was a huge turning point in their franchise. Of course, Durant would go on to join the Warriors, but they also retooled the roster in the months after, trading away Ibaka as well. People say that Durant killed the parity in the NBA, but what we really missed out on was seeing the Thunder vs Warriors rivalry for years to come. We only had a small taste of this rivalry. If Durant stayed, think about all the exciting games we missed out on between these 2 teams. It would have been the perfect rivalry. 2 teams that could be considered as the perfect example of how to build a team through the draft. Both of their franchises drafted their core, and both of them watched their players grow together. Well, except for James Harden. Anyway, their regular season games were exciting enough, but there was so much more that we could never see now. It's unfortunate this rivalry ended way too soon, before it really even started. Nowadays, Oklahoma City has tried to retool and rebuild their team, hoping to get back into the championship conversation. The year following Durant's exit, Russell Westbrook took over the team and went on a rampage, averaging a 30-point triple-double, something we haven't seen since Oscar Robertson in the 1960s. He took home the MVP award despite being on the team with the 6th seed, the lowest seeding for an MVP in over 30 years. But while most other teams would crumble and fall over after losing their franchise player, the Thunder did not. With the addition of Westbrook stepping up and becoming the true franchise player of the team, the front office continued to make moves and add players to get back to the level that they were before Durant left. A trade with the Pacers landed them Paul George, the star who they needed, and he would become a great fit next to Westbrook. However, this wouldn't come without a cost. The Thunder would lose veteran Serge Ibaka, who's been with the team since he got drafted, as well as Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis, who they got back for him. All those guys have been playing well, so it's not like OKC won the trade super convincingly. With that being said though, Paul George has been amazing, spectacular, as he's having the best season of his entire career. A couple years have passed and the Thunder have recovered quite nicely, but it's still yet to be seen if they're capable of returning back to the finals. A lot of faith goes into Thunder GM Sam Presti. Despite making some trades before that did not turn out well, he would never quit on the team and continue to build their roster despite their setbacks. In the 2018 playoffs, after suffering a surprising first-round loss to the Jazz, Presti made it clear that he expected more. He said, "We expected more out of the team. I felt really good to hopefully put us in a position to make deep playoff runs. I don't feel like we were at that level this year, and that's on us. We gotta figure out ways going forward." And whether or not they can make a deep playoff run with this current squad, only time will tell. Anyway, that's all folks. That was the story of the 2016 Thunder, a great team that had an amazing playoff run, inches away from cementing their legacy in the history books. What do you remember most about this team? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.